Polar Star Podcast.
Hey, I'm Murph, and this is Top Tree State, a show that highlights the people behind the businesses of Maine's cannabis industry. I'm here in the Polar Star Podcast studio in South Portland, Maine. Sitting across from me is my good friend Lee Nason and producer extraordinaire here at Polar Star Podcast. What's going on, Lee?
Not much. How you doing, Murph?
I'm doing great. Excited to get into this episode with Nurse Practitioner Ann Marie of Vetted Cannabis. Ann Marie's and her whole family are good friends of mine. Lee, what did you think of this episode?
I thought it was great. It was really good to have her on and to hear about the medical side, strictly medical from a nurse practitioner who's prescribing this to patients.
Right. Yeah. Great company, Vetted. Check them out. Without any further delay, here is Nurse Practitioner Ann Marie of Vetted Cannabis. Before we get to the interview, I wanted to let you know that we are brought to you by Polar Star Podcasts, bringing you community conversations by highlighting the people, ideas, and industries that make Maine so unique. Please visit polarstarpodcast.com and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or creating a show of your own, email polarstarpodcast@gmail.com or reach out through the website. Again, that's polarstarpodcast.com. And we are here at Top Tree State with Nurse Practitioner Ann Marie of Vetted Cannabis. How are you today?
Very well. Excited.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, sure.
So let's start at the beginning of your journey into the cannabis industry. Like, what brought you into this?
I must give credit to my daughter, Meredith. My husband, they started cultivating, let's say, 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
She was also a nurse at the time in Massachusetts and began a relationship with her husband, who's now actually, they're just starting to separate at this time, which is sad to say. But 6 years ago, they had a relationship and they were going into the cultivation, and it started in Scarborough, Maine. And from there, they launched with my husband, found property in Sanford, Maine, and that was the big commercial cultivation facility that we have now.
Mm-hmm.
So it went from growing for dispensaries to actually establishing our own patient office, and that happened in December of just 19. Just 7 months ago, we opened our own patient office in Sanford, and as experienced cultivators, now it was time to see if we could help patients, educate the patients, empower the patients to become the drivers of their own health care relative to cannabis use.
That's
And,
great. So
yeah.
were you a nurse before this?
Yes. So I've been a nurse practitioner for more than 30 years. I retired from a career with the Veterans Administration and then became acquainted with the cannabis science. And because I was familiar with cultivating, it was time to take on the science of it all. And but frankly, I'm no cannabis expert. I pride myself on helping patients to learn more about cannabis, the science of cannabis, so that they can become familiar and informed and make the decisions for their own liking,
So with the writing prescriptions, say from as a nurse writing pharmaceutical prescriptions, what's the different aspect of writing a prescription for a certain strain or something?
Sure. It's a great question. So as a nurse practitioner, certainly I was prescribing for years, all kinds of things. I purposely don't prescribe cannabis to the patient. I meet with them one-on-one, discuss their ailments, their conditions that they're seeking relief from. And then I share some of the science of what chemicals can have what effects. So going in depth on terpenes, cannabinoids, and then showing them, because we test the flower that we have, we can show what strains have what chemicals and then help them to better decide on what strain is best for that condition.
Right.
I guess the emphasis is back on the patient because they could have many conditions, heartburn and anxiety and low back pain. And really, it's their anxiety that's their priority. But I wouldn't know
Right.
that. They're the ones to decide that.
Yeah.
And then you aim for a strain that's best for treating anxiety.
Are you in the store every day, like ready to help people when they come in?
So I'm there Tuesdays through Fridays. I was there 7 days from the initiation of since December, but come March, April is when I started to back off a few days. So I do issue medical cannabis cards. I do perform health assessments. I do review medications and do a medication reconciliation with the patient so that they know what cannabinoids can affect, interact with what medications.
That's cool. You can give med cards to people right when they come into your place. And
Yes.
so if they walk into Vetted without a med card, they can walk out of there.
The only qualifier, they must be a Maine resident. I cannot issue to non-Maine residents. And we also issue free medical cards to Maine veterans. So they're the of all the charities we've chosen veterans to give back to for all of their sacrifices, compromise they've made for all of us.
Yeah,
So
for sure. That's
Yeah.
great. Do you smoke? Can I ask you that? Do you
I
smoke?
rarely do.
Rarely smoke?
Rarely do.
Was it like was there ever felt like a taboo thing getting into
sure.
cannabis from? Yeah.
Yeah. So I can tell you just from working with the Veterans Administration, it's federally illegal to prescribe cannabis. So I was going from an environment where it was prohibited to prescribe to now a time in my life where I'm trying to become more acquainted with, more informed about the cannabis effects and its uses and dosing. It's not standardized, so it's a tricky business to get into.
Right. Because how can you tell someone to smoke a joint or smoke one nug?
Exactly. So it's very difficult without that standard testing with human studies. There's been plenty of rodent studies and animal studies in the U.S., but there's no human studies. We have to look to other countries like Israel, the U.K., and Canada for those human studies. But I'm still hoping that we can just impart the knowledge that we have, my daughter being the registered nurse and myself, the nurse practitioner, onto the patient so that they become more informed. They ask more questions. They seek out more
Right.
information, and then they become the drivers of their, the
Right.
selections.
So Vetted is a family-run business.
It is. Yes, it is.
How is that like? When you leave the workflow
Place.
and go home, does the work come with you?
It does. I
Yeah.
guess there's never a time where it's totally turned off.
Yeah.
I can't deny that there's blood, sweat, and tears that goes into cultivating
For sure.
cannabis. There's so much. There's certainly the cloning or from seeds, the growing, the lighting, the environmental controls, the watering, the nutrients, curing. There's plenty of steps right there. And then after it's processed to know what strains have what chemicals, there's the testing that you have to pay to have that done. And then you have to market yourselves and publicize yourselves. And there's been shortcomings as well that we've we've fallen short on many times. And aside from the blood, sweat, and tears that we put into it, we come away some days kicking, screaming, and spitting. So I want you to know that that's a reality too.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's real. It's real.
Yeah.
What
are you guys doing to prepare for the rec market?
we really want to fulfill our role in the medical side of things.
Yeah,
so we're trying to convince the patients the need for the information, the need for the science, the need for the testing. There's no hard feelings for those that are purely going to use for recreational needs. That's a whole another reason to partake. But if you're seeking to use cannabis for a particular symptom relief, you want to know which chemical is going to achieve that relief, or you're wasting your time and your money.
Right.
And you're having a false hope of an outcome that won't occur. So both my daughter and I are trying to bring that information to people so that they can learn. Don't make that same mistake and buy the same
Right.
product that's not going to bring about the results they're seeking.
Yeah.
We hope we chose the name Vetted as a way of being transparent to people. When you vet something, you've authenticated it, you've reviewed it, you've done a background check. So we invite people to do that of us. That's right, we're family owned and we operate. You'll see my husband putting up screen doors, or it's real. We said the front steel door needed a screen door. We want to get in and out quickly. It's too hot, blah, blah. The next moment he's out there in the middle of patients coming and going, putting up a screen door.
Getting it done.
Get it done.
Get it done.
But by testing our product, by being transparent, having our credentials mounted on the wall, proving that I'm not a witch doctor, that
Right.
I'm a nurse practitioner.
No, I love that background that you have. That it's very honest, and it's very scientific.
Well, let's take pause there.
Is it not scientific?
It is scientific, but I'm no expert.
Right.
So I'm continuing to learn. I'm continuing on my journey of education in regards to cannabis. The science behind it is enormous. There are new discoveries still, and will continue. And so staying abreast is not easy.
Right.
And so that's one thing I say and declare to people. I'm no expert, but I hope to become one.
Yeah.
But join me on that journey is my plea. You know, come along with me. Let's learn together.
Right.
You know?
I feel like I'm along with you on that journey. I follow you on Instagram, and all your posts are very informative. They're great.
Well, thank you.
I think that's something that the scene needs more, is like medical professionals saying like what they think about it.
Right. Well, I can only share what I know, and
Right.
I hope that I am sharing the sources of the information when I do make reference to something, because I even ask my patients to come away with the question, says who? You should feel comfortable in saying to someone, well, says who, when they tell you something.
Right.
Where did that information come from? What's
Right.
the source?
So who do you get your product tested by?
Nelson Analytics in Kennebunk. That's where we get the yeast, mold, heavy metals, and cannabinoids and terpenes. But we have to make the drive to Portland for ProVerde to do the pesticides.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you finding that like some strains are more popular in that you're prescribing more regularly, or not prescribing, but like telling people to?
I can see there's, for mental health reasons, there's definitely a need. There's the ADDs, well, let me not use acronyms. There's attention deficit disorder, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder. There are strains that are better for some of those things than others, anxiety, depression, strains. And then there's a whole shift of patients that need assistance with sleep and pain. Pain comes from a variety of sources, autoimmune, from traumatic injuries. Pain is also as vast as far as the origin of pain, but people usually are coming with those problems, a mental health complaint or a pain sleep complaint.
Yeah.
Those are the big majority.
Do you think that at some point in the future, hospitals or doctors will be able to prescribe cannabis, or do you think this will stay in just cannabis world?
Well, I think the federal, currently it's a Schedule 1. Cannabis is a Schedule 1 drug, equal to some heroin that has no medical efficacy. We say the term is efficacy. Until that's released legally, down to a Schedule 2, so that the National Institute for Health could allow grants, federal funding grants to study cannabis. I think it's a couple years away at least. I'm going to guess 3 years away before it's federally legal. There have been some politicians, Rand Paul and Cory Booker, that had put together some It was a bill formation in regards to cannabis becoming a Schedule II. There were lots of other things in the bill, but it didn't move along fast enough.
And that's federally, that's not by state.
Right, federally, we need it federally
Yeah.
first. Because federally is where the federal funds come for research grants. You can have private investors, Murph, but who's got the money to give to a scientist to study cannabis? This is going to be, in the $100,000s to $1 million grants.
Yeah.
And to do some human studies. And so I think we're...
They can study me. I'll blaze.
Yes.
I'm a willing.
A volunteer. There we got one subject to be studied. Well, and also, all kidding aside, even if one study is completed, that study has to be replicated and then peer reviewed. So say you were the study, which is a very small sample size that would not, it would fail as far as federal funding. You need to have a large sample size. And then another scientist has to have an opportunity to duplicate your study, to replicate it. And again, to authenticate your outcome is going to repeat.
Yeah.
And then a peer reviewer, an outsider, has to come in and then look and see that it was done in accordance to total objectivity, that there's no bias, that it's not your strain, your mode of cannabis, inhalation versus edibles, topicals.
Yeah.
It's so vast that I can see we're some years away.
Yeah, the studies on that, because the variables are so vast. Even just if it was just me, day to day, if I smoked the same strain today or smoked it tomorrow, I might feel different because of how I'm feeling that day.
Well, and the control group, was it grown by the same grower in the same environment, indoors, outdoors, nutrients? You have to control everything.
Yeah.
Inhalation, was it by, there's so many things that you have to consider.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, while we await this federal legalization, it's legal in the state of Maine, and now we just have to get our hands around some science that can avail to us, science coming from Israel, UK, Canada, and apply it to what we do know. And be honest and frank with the patients. This is without guarantee or certainty, because there's no standardization in dosing in human studies. However, what we've learned to date is this, thus and such.
Yeah.
So see how it affects you.
Do you think that if there was, if you were to make, distillate pills or something, that maybe would be a more accurate study to be able to do?
I don't. The distillate, it too comes from flower, so the original source.
Right.
You've got to have it all controlled. Was the original source? Was it well water? Was it city water? Was it an indoor, outdoor? You have to control everything. LED lights versus, HPS.
Yeah.
Every single element of the growing part has to be controlled and replicated. And then we got to get into, what was the dose of that distillate that we used? How much was it?
Right.
There are so many variables, it's very difficult to get your arms around.
I know, it's a lot. There's so much to do in this industry,
However, I think patients are learning, though, plant-based, it's pure, it's clean, versus conventional medicine, which is, Big Pharma is also introducing fillers to your medication. Much of the medication may be, let's say, acetaminophen, which is Tylenol, but there may be a need to put in some additional fillers to complete that tablet or that pill form or that gelatin.
Yeah.
So I can tell you with cannabis, it's a plant-based medication, so it is coming from a clean start in that way.
So you trust cannabis more than for most ailments. You switched industries because you back cannabis.
Well, I've seen some of the side effects from conventional medicines.
Yeah.
They target the ailment, but
they kind of just keep you sick, don't they?
Well, I don't want to. I have to say I've prescribed and believed in the intent of the medication. It's just that there's side effects. There are outcomes on the liver or the kidneys from years of use of conventional medicines. But then I need to take pause and say we haven't really studied it long term for cannabis use. So there's another window of opportunity to examine that further as well.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Ann Marie. Back with Nurse Practitioner Ann Marie from Vetted. So we were talking about your company and what sets Vetted apart.
So we are experienced cultivators. We constructed a newly constructed building specifically for cannabis cultivation, and it has plastic walls, for example. It has so that you can spray wash it. After harvest. We have a full camera system inside the grow area, so it certainly helps with security. But separate to that, we allow that same camera system to be viewed by all patients that come into the patient office so that they can see if we're cloning, if we're harvesting, in real time what's happening, but more importantly, that there's no insects, vermin, or pesticides being sprayed, right?
I love that you use the word transparent because that's exactly what that is.
Well, you'd be amazed. Patients want to stand there with their arms crossed and they want to see what's happening.
Right.
They really want to know how this
As
product.
they should.
Yes,
because they can't really do that with pharmaceutical drugs.
Exactly. They want to see where it came from, who's doing it to their product, where is it being done. So we constructed the building specifically, the lighting, the radiant flooring, the auto watering, so that you can see these things, these devices.
Radiant flooring?
Yeah, it's a heated floor.
Wow,
Imagine
nice.
that. Yeah, you can lay down, you won't need a blanket. So aside from constructing the building, and then we rolled up our sleeves and began growing. That means, with cocoa for soil and cloning, and like I said, and trimming and pruning and you name it. We would be there late at night doing all of that. And what sets us apart is we're a one-stop shop. So a patient today can come, now that we have the patient office open, they can come. They can be issued a medical card. They can be told it's okay, just let's have access to cannabis. You don't even have to make a decision today and you're not beholden to us. But here you have legal access for the coming year. You got a card. We've also begun to educate the patients. We pride ourselves on those three mantras. We want to cultivate, educate, and medicate. That's our thing. That's our gig. So we cultivate, we actually do it. Blood, sweat, and tears, I've told you already.
Yeah.
Educate, we take the time. We're asking the patients what medication profile they have, who's their doctor, what's their ailment they're seeking relief from. And then the test results, we go to Nelson's Analytics in Kennebunk with our strains and have them tested. And those printouts are what we use as the drivers to help the patient find what's best suited for them.
So then you get a readout of what it says is this is the THC, this is the CBD, this is the CBG, and
Yeah.
So what do each of those? What would you say like the CBD be good for, and what would difference?
Okay, I'll give you a mini. So if we had a strain and it would say how much THC, so let's say less than 15% is, a moderate amount. Above 15% is getting into the higher amount. Now, 10 milligrams of THC or less is a great anti-anxiety. It can be antispasmodic. Now, when you get higher, it's going to be sedative. So as you get higher and higher with the THC, it's more sedating. But lower doses, it's a bronchodilator. Did you know an asthmatic with a very little dose of THC can open the airways? Astonishing. CBG, it's a great analgesic. It's a pain reliever. It's an antidepressant, CBG. It's great for prostate cancer. Who would have known?
Wow.
Yeah.
So what strain, do you have any strains on the shelf that are good?
Well, matter of fact, CBG is
It's a
actually
hard thing to find in plants, no?
No, CBG is more common than CBD in strains. CBD is harder to find in strains,
Really?
believe it or not. Yeah. But CBG, there's just so many effects that CBG can have, and then the CBD, that's also it's an anticonvulsant. It's a antidepressant. CBD's got so many uses as well. I'm thinking of the terpenes. Now you're getting into a whole nother family of chemicals.
Do you guys cultivate CBD plants alongside THC plants or no?
Not straight CBD. No. We've had a THC CBD. I can tell you that we talk about that because there's a need for that.
Yeah.
Harder to find that single strain that's a pure CBD, excluding hemp.
Right.
Oh, hemp. You can seek your CBD by way of hemp.
Right.
And there's terpenes. There's so much, but setting us apart is that we're striving, Murph, to find those strains that are best for certain conditions, like anything with lemon meringue, super lemon haze. Lemon has limonene in it and linalool, and these are terpenes that are great for anxiety. They're anti-anxiety. So
those are more sativa based.
they are.
Right.
But even to teach the patient that those phytocannabinoids, like limonene, is even in a lemon, like a lemon. So lemon water can have some anti-anxiety properties, not just cannabis.
Right. Yeah, you see a lot of fake terpenes around, like in like carts and stuff. Do you guys make carts?
We send ours to a lab in Hollis. PAMA Lab is the lab that we use for our cartridges to be made. But we did have a cartridge compounded for us. It's named Be Merry for anxiety. It was a super lemon haze.
Named after your daughter?
It is.
Nice.
You betcha. But that's a cartridge that's not be soupy in the head or be sedated. It's to be merry. When the dread of anxiety has you with palpitations, with dry mouth, with the tapping foot because you can't think straight, that's when you need to take a chemical that's going to not sedate you,
right?
Not have you lose your cognitive place, but calm you. And that's what the cartridge does, Be Merry. And that's from a super lemon haze strain. You could use a lemon meringue strain. There are many ways to get there for, say, anti-anxiety, CBG, CBD, limonene, linalool. Lots of these chemicals have great anti-anxiety properties. So it's finding the strain that maximizes that. The entourage effect is when the strain takes in all its chemicals. It's versus a soloist. If you think about it in a band, a soloist, if you take out a single distillate out of a strain.
It was just THC.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're not getting the full effects, but when you bring the whole entourage, when you're bringing the whole band together instead
You
of
get
the
a
soloist,
full sound.
now you're getting the full benefit of what you're seeking. And many of these chemicals need the benefit of the other partner. THC and CBD are a great marriage.
Right.
They kind of bolster each other. They're
Right.
like booster rockets for each other.
Yeah.
In isolation, they don't work so well.
Is it? I've heard that. Do you need THC in your system for the CBD to activate? If you were to take just CBD, not full spectrum, just the CBD, would you still get the same benefits?
So again, I'm no expert. From what I know about CBD, you need a high dose. You need 10 to 20 milligrams a kilogram for its maximum effect. So it's a weight-based chemical, CBD. Yep. However, if you give just a small dose of THC along with CBD, it can decrease that CBD dose requirement tenfold. It's interesting.
Yeah.
So, but if you didn't know that, that's why just giving a little bit.
Right.
But what I've found, patients oftentimes use THC to the extreme.
Yeah.
And they bypass so many of the other medicinal effects of THC, antispasmodic, antidepressant, bronchodilator. They've blown way past that into the peak sedation, into the high dose of THC.
Right. I have to be honest, when I smoke, I want to smoke an indica and I want to just kind of hang out on the couch. But I I want to use it for the medical side, and I want to learn more about what it can do for me in my body.
Right.
Instead of just being
I mean, we can put down a horse, Murph.
Yeah.
But
it's just going to take like a really big blunt
for this horse.
Yeah.
But it's your goal, not my goal.
Right.
And that's what's important to be heard. It's what you take away and learn from all of this moving forward, because you can make purchases of cannabis all over the country now. So it's best that you walk away with the information.
Yeah. So do you have a lot of like returning customers that, cause I feel like you just like educate people. They're like, oh, well, I got to go back.
Well, we are finding that we're having that, and we're pleased about that
Yeah.
there is a return now. I think people feeling a level of trust with us that first we say, hey, listen, we trip up, so we want your vote of confidence. Tell us when we do.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't feel comfortable in telling us when we do, then we're going to lose you. So that's why it's more reason to speak about it today before we trip up.
Yeah.
And have your vote of confidence that just speak freely.
Right.
And I think patients are starting to feel comfortable and saying, hey, that really worked, but this didn't.
Yeah.
That really, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at what we're missing out of this.
Do you find that sometimes like a customer will really like a strain, and then do you guys like cycle through strains, or you don't like have one available anymore, and it, or like
we sometimes, yes,
Yeah.
I can't deny that. Sometimes it disappoints us too when something goes
I mean,
so
you kind of
quickly.
got to switch it up. You
Yeah.
can't just have the same things all the time. But
I can tell you the patients seem to like a variety.
yeah, do you have a hot selling strain?
I think the lemons are a big popular. Again, mental health things are.
Yeah. Sativas, I feel like, are good for that mental health.
The
like
concentrates are more indicas. I
Yeah.
can tell you that
Yeah.
people are usually seeking the high highs on those.
the concentrates.
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
So you guys make your product into concentrates as well.
Yes, a lab,
Yeah,
Pamalab.
Pamalabs.
Yes.
Yep.
But
They do good work. For
They
sure.
certainly do.
Yeah.
We're lucky to have them on our
Yeah.
side. You know, they're a great ally to have.
Yep.
Pamalab.
It's a great community. It's everyone's helping each other, and
Oh, there's so many. There's fabulous growers.
Yeah.
There are people that really care, you know, and I can tell you just Sanford is such a family-based community.
is there a lot of other stores in Sanford? Do you have a lot, like, is there competition down there?
Yeah, we can't have retail stores in Sanford just yet, but there's 8 licensed cultivation sites and some fabulous cultivators, Wisely, Afterglow, Isaac. There's some great talented growers in the
So you don't
community.
have it's not a retail store.
No, we're a patient office.
Ah,
Sanford will
that
not
makes
allow
sense.
retail stores. Sanford will not allow signage. So I can tell you there's many a complaint about Vetted not having signage to help with wayfinding. And it's I wish we could, but the city won't allow it.
kind of a gray area where you get to because you have people in and you give them a med card and then you're their caregiver, so legally you can.
It's like a patient office. If you
Right.
went to your doctor's office,
Yeah.
it's just that I won't be performing any procedures and prescribing any medications, giving injections or things like that.
Right.
But I will want to know what's troubling you and how can we find the right cannabis treatment for you.
That's
know?
great.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
So you're located in Sanford. Is there anything else you want to plug about your business right now? And
I think the community itself of Sanford is it's just a close knit. Many people know one another. There's a big Facebook following for Sanford, and you hear when patients pull up that it's not rare for someone to roll down the window and holler over to the next vehicle to say, "Hey, so and so,
Hey,
blah
how
blah."
you doing?
Of course.
What's up, bud?
Yep. Today we had 2 patients that had just purchased new puppies, and they were talking. They got out of their car and they're talking to one another. It was just beautiful to watch. That
Has it been weird having people in there now that it's
it's all
Corona
curbside
stuff?
Yeah. It's disappointing. We can't allow patients to come into the patient office right now because the experience is less than what it would be or
Yeah.
should be. But it is a beautiful thing that people are caring for one another and just saying hello to one another and right there in the parking lot.
Right.
That's kind of
that's
telling
great
of
to
the
see.
community.
Yeah.
You know, it's not people are not in their boundaries or they're not shrouded by they're open and they're looking side to side. Who's here at Vetted?
Yeah.
Who are you? You know?
Yeah.
And so I think that's wonderful. And it's veterans. I usually point out a veteran to another veteran. I'll say, this is an Army veteran. And they'll start talking,
Nice.
you know, what rank, what year, what was
Yeah.
their MOS. And that's another beautiful thing.
Do you get a lot of veterans with the name Vetted? Is that kind of
Well, that is our aim. You know, veterans are the ones we've chosen to give back to, and why not? I mean, for all they've done and do for us,
Sure, yeah.
men and women in uniform. We give them free medical cards. We issue free medical cards, and we give them a 20% discount lifelong. But more than that, I've worked in the VA for 37 years. My daughter did for 10 years in the VA. So we know the VA walk. We know the VA story. We were privileged to take care of them. So we let them know that, and they share some of their experiences at the VA. And we were there. Or,
Yeah.
yeah, I remember that. Or it's just
That's nice that you're helping the veterans too, because I feel like veterans have a lot of, you know, you get that PSTD, you get the
PTSD. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
And the anxiety and all that stuff that, you know, 10 years ago, you wouldn't be able to just say, hey, like, try this strain.
Right.
You know?
Well, we were thinking there are many veterans that, you know, maybe just using street weed and to give them free access. That's just, they're not beholden to us. Let's give veterans free access, Maine veterans, and they can begin their journey to learn and find the right treatment for them. And it's just, it's just great, Murph. You know, we're a family, and we say, you know, the patients love it when I say, oh, there's my daughter, and here's her dog coming over, and my husband's putting up the screen door, and, you know, people are just loving that. We're just common people.
It's a main thing. You want to see the family.
Yeah,
then,
that's all.
Yeah.
It's just real. It's just, you know.
So your daughter, you've got a granddaughter.
Yes.
How's she doing?
She's doing great, and we also compounded a cartridge called,
named after her.
You bet. Ivy League. It's high in CBD and THC, and it's for sleep and pain.
Yeah.
And it's called Ivy League. And the reason we said Ivy League, it's when conventional medicines don't help you with pain. Now you're into the big leagues. And academically, when you get into the big leagues, it's the Ivy League, you know? So, and her name's Ivy.
Yeah. How would you feel if she, like, when she grows up and she starts getting you know, she's been around cannabis her whole life.
That's true.
Is she's gonna start smoking? Is it like, what do you do there?
So we're going to educate her early on about the healthy effects of cannabis,
Right.
and how to ensure that it's healthy, and some checks for her to learn. You know, has the product been tested? Ask questions. Where is it coming from?
Right. Yeah, educating the youth so they don't grow up wanting to abuse it.
Exactly. Don't go into the extremes. Let's see what the benefits are at a lower dose, and work from there. You know, that's our aim. No, we're not putting our head in the sand, Murph. We're here to stay. We're experienced cultivators, and now we're loving being on the other side of this, guiding the patient, the consumer, to seek out a healthy, clean, safe, plant-based medication.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you a lot for coming in. Everybody that comes on the show gets a gift, so I have something for you.
Woohoo!
It is a VHS Titanic.
Oh, wow.
This 11 Academy Awards.
Uh-huh.
And I'm a huge Leo fan. That's for you.
Well, thank you.
You're
I think
welcome.
that's so wonderful. I'll think of you as I watch Titanic doing the whoop. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity. It was really privileged to be here today and get our word and our name out.
Yeah.
And, thanks, Murph, in helping us in our journey.
I appreciate you.